Thank you, Hope, and welcome everyone to this week's edition of the Industry Update featuring Melissa Bova. I would remind you that today's information is designed for the benefit and use of our restaurant, hotel, travel and tourism and other friends of PRLA. It is off the record. It's not designed for the press. We entertain all press inquiries directly. But if you're with the press today and signed on to this webinar, please disconnect. And with that, Melissa, take it away.
Good morning, everyone. I don't want to be all over the place today, but there's like a lot of things coming up. So I'm going to go, we have the PowerPoint, but I might go at a few extra topics just because it's my webinar and I can. So let's start out with federal stuff. All right, so it's like an emotional roller coaster at the federal level. I mean, we started out the year where I think we were all feeling a little defeated, and then we had hope, and now I think we're just confused as to everything that's happening all of a sudden at the federal level. But this is where we are. I'm going to tell you what I know, and I want to caveat all of this that this is what I know at 11:01 today, and this could all change in an hour or two because I've never seen things change as quickly as they have in DC just over the course of this week. So there's a lot of things happening, a lot of bills, and this is what happens typically with a new president. He has a lot of momentum and he kind of throws everything at the wall and sees what sticks. So we are in the midst of a new administration that is going to include, obviously we're seeing a lot of executive orders, but currently right now we are seeing the negotiations occurring as it pertains to what should be the next federal stimulus package or what that could contain. And whether it contains some things, I don't know if we would continue to call it a stimulus package, but I think that depends on how it turns out at the end of the day. President Biden put out about $1.9 trillion, what he's calling the first round of a stimulus package. Then he met with some Republicans on Monday and Tuesday, 10 of the more moderate Republicans in the Senate to kind of discuss what they would like. And they're kind of in the range in a $600 to $700 million package. The reason he's meeting really primarily with Republicans in the Senate right now is because, quite frankly, the Democrats have enough control in the House. They're going to do whatever the president wants. And the Senate is really kind of the stopgap in terms of, will every Democrat in the Senate, 50 members, put up a vote for something? And then the vice president, of course, would be the deciding vote. And that's really the sticking point we're seeing at the federal level right now, where you have a president who says that he wants to work with everybody. He wants to have enough votes for his priorities that it's not kind of that tie-breaking vote. But his package right now isn't getting him there. So right now, we're looking at $1.9 trillion. What is inclusive of it in terms of recovery for our industry is Restaurants Act in its $120 billion form is not part of the president's package, which we discussed a week or 2 weeks ago. There are pushes to get some type of recovery, restaurant hospitality recovery in there, nowhere near to the tune of $120 billion. There's talks of $20 billion, $25 billion, $30 billion, but nothing to the tune of 120. So there is talk about a hospitality specific package. It is not going to be the size and scope. And quite honestly, there hasn't even been a decision of if the 20, 25, 30, 35 billion restaurant package will be included. But there's talk of that. That's what puts us in a bit of a tough position right now. And we have started our grassroots activation on the other facet of President Biden's initial package, which does include, which we talked about last week, minimum wage and tipped wage, an increase in the minimum wage to $15. And then over the course of, I want to say it's 8 years, maybe 9, a complete elimination of the tipped wage. It's hard as an industry, and this is why we've been really careful in terms of doing this, is while we need the financial relief for COVID, we don't believe that within that same package should be an economic burden on our industry that will put many of you out of business, or in best case scenario, completely rework how your operations are existing and functioning right now. So we're really trying to push right now the fact that minimum wage and tipped wage should not be part of a recovery package. You're pretty much not gaining anything by giving us money for recovery and then putting on another economic burden on top of the industry. So that's our focus. That's why this week, thank you, Steph, she's in my mind, we started the tipped credit action alert. Our focus within PRLA right now is primarily tip credit. Now, that doesn't mean we don't have concerns with the $15 minimum wage. We know that's crazy. We're with you. But there is no other industry that's going to fight to preserve the tipped credit. I love my hairdresser. She does miracles. But outside of the hairdressing industry and smaller industries like that, it is our industry primarily that relies on the tip credit, which is why our action alerts that we all sent out to you this week are focused on that. And we need you to start engaging. There is a big push, and my fingers are crossed, and I'm hoping and I'm praying, as we all are, to whoever your God may be, that there will be reason within the administration and within the Senate that you really cannot have a COVID recovery package with this wage as a part of it. And that's really what we're focusing on. And that is a focus in the Senate, but it also needs to be a focus within the US House as well. We do need you all to start reaching out to your Congress people, to your US senators, to say the impact that this will have upon you. I know that we have really great Congress people in the Southeast. They're very sensitive to the needs of the industry. They also put up that vote to eliminate the minimum wage and tipped wage last session. Now, they did that because they knew the Senate wasn't going to move on it, so they could put up the vote. Now we need to put pressure on them to let them know that if they do that, there is a risk that the tipped wage will be eliminated, your servers will see a pay cut at the end of the day, and there will be losers in terms of how this legislation is passed. That's where we are. So focus right now, that grassroots action in terms of minimum wage and tipped wage. If we get more information, if we're able to separate that from the federal package and have two separate issues here, and we can focus on just a federal package without that, we will pivot and have you once again start focusing on that Restaurants Act 120 billion, which we're still focusing on, but the bigger issue right now is that elimination of the tipped wage. So it's complicated even for me. So this might be Greek to all of you by now, but that's kind of where we are in terms of how things are playing out in DC. The other issue, of course, is how the votes would work out. We'll save that for another webinar because we don't have enough time to go through how the votes would work out. But right now, we really need you to focus on that action alert and the impact $15 minimum wage and elimination of the tipped wage will have. We need to start working through that. And like I said, if your efforts, of which 30,000 messages have already been sent out, gain traction, we'll be able to pivot and really focus again on that recovery package. But 25 billion isn't going to mean a lot to all of you at the end of the day if we really don't see action and a step away from the increase in wages that we would be looking at. To that end, it's that time of year again where we need your help to fill out the industry survey, which Steph, again, is right on her game. The National Restaurant Association is doing another industry survey. If you've participated in these surveys, you have seen the results from them. In a lot of PRLA's kind of pieces that we put out, our priorities to the legislature in our press releases, it is literally state-specific data that shows the impact that COVID has had on our industry. This survey, every single time we've done a survey, I know I've said it's the most important survey. This is the most important survey. And that's because it's going to be pulling data of the impact that December shutdown had on your business. And we need to focus on that. We never want to go through it again. Priority is to never go through that again. But we need to get the impact that has had, how many people you laid off, what that did to your P&L, how that might have changed, how you're looking at the future, of if you're able to get through the next few months without federal assistance, all of those questions that they ask. Pennsylvania, and John is by far kind of the data person within the office. All of that data really helps us show Pennsylvania's business community and hospitality community being at a disadvantage to other states because of the decisions that are coming from our administration and because of the impact that has had on you. So please, they will not give us state-specific data if we don't have enough people filling out that survey. So please take the time to fill out the survey. I think it's going to go a long way improving how that December shutdown was just another kind of punch to the gut for the industry and helping us move forward in terms of getting relief for all of you. That is my long rambling. It's probably the most I've spent on a federal update since we had like the second round of P3. So state update. Today's a bit of a mess, which might be why I'm talking faster than normal, or it just might be I've had a lot of coffee. But they did, if you haven't noticed or your backs haven't noticed, we got a bit of snow this week. So they canceled session in Harrisburg on Monday and Tuesday, which means that they piled everything up for session for today, tomorrow, and Friday. So today, House and Senate are in session, and today is the governor's budget address, which he makes every year. We've had a few articles I think we've put in the update. I know we had one yesterday. His budget address is at 11:30 today. You don't really need to watch it because it's really all the press articles that go into kind of the drill downs of what's in it. But from what we're seeing, it includes, shocker, $15 minimum wage, elimination of the tipped wage. But it also includes, as you probably saw in the article we shared last night, an increase in the personal income tax. A significant increase that would raise $3 billion to go to schools. So that's part of the governor's proposal that he plans to make today. In theory, I don't want to get into the weeds, it would provide a tax credit to those who are lower income, so they wouldn't see an increase in their personal income tax, but those with a higher income would see an increase in their PIT. Don't lose a lot of sleep on this. I said that about minimum wage at the federal level, and I take that back a little bit. But we do have a Republican control in the House and Senate, and while sometimes we love them or hate them, that will be a counter or a balance to the governor's proposal. Also, I think at the federal level, we're going to be seeing hopefully some more federal funds drill down that will go to schools and some of the things that the governor wants to fund. So that could help as well. But that really, that and probably a shale tax is probably going to be included. At least the personal income tax will be included today. So that will be at 11:30, and then we will go back to having budget hearings and the people's business. Also today at 10 a.m., the House Tourism Office testified. Not the House, the state's tourism office testified before the House Tourism and Recreational Development Committee, basically about the economy in Pennsylvania, how COVID has impacted tourism, and their plans on how to kind of handle tourism going into the future and promote Pennsylvania in the future. So we're starting to see from the legislature some requests from the administration of not only obviously why did you make the decisions you made to handle the crisis like you did, but also what do you plan to do to get this economy through the crisis and out of the crisis. So we're starting to see kind of that forward thinking mentality from the legislature. And we saw that today within the House Tourism Committee meeting. And there will be more meetings as we go into budget hearings that will be focusing on all of that as well. The $145 million hospitality grant, which I announced to all of you last week, that is that $145 million the governor kind of found in the workers' comp fund. The legislature did dedicate it entirely to a hospitality grant. The House is going to be considering it today. The hope is, depending on how the Senate stays in session, that it will get to the governor this week. There is some talk about amendments, nothing that would change the recipients of the grant. There might be some employee definition changes, but it will still be inclusive. And I haven't seen the final language, so I can't say what, but the intention is kind of to make it a little bit clearer in terms of the intent. But anybody with that 7.2 NCIS code, our hotels and our restaurants and our caterers, if you have that code, would be eligible for this $145 million. There might also be some changes to who would be distributing the grants, but they would be given to counties and distributed that way. So we will have a lot more information. I don't want to get too much into the weeds, kind of like I did last week, because we might see some changes. So I don't want to tell you anything today that might change. And the funds will not get out until March at the earliest to these counties. So we have some time to work through it and see exactly how that grant program will work and how much funds you could potentially be getting. On to that end, before I get to liquor priorities, some of PRLA's legislative priority bills are being introduced. Liability protection has been reintroduced by Senator Lisa Baker. And we're also working through some of those tax issues that we've talked to many of you about. Those of you that have gotten P3s, we need clarifiers that it's not subject to state taxes. In addition to those who might have received CARES grants, also working to get language clarifying that it's not subject to state taxes. So those are all things that we are working on as I speak to you right now. Liquor priorities. We are moving forward with PRLA's our list of priorities. Steph did a great job. We continue to update that document to show you where co-sponsorship memos have come out, where we have prime sponsors, and as bills are introduced, what bills are actually checking the box in terms of those priorities. We are moving quickly in terms of legislative speak on our liquor priorities. And that's inclusive of a few different things. Most importantly, our 15% licensee discount. Chairman Pyle and the House Liquor Committee is planning to introduce that. We have Representative Dan Deasy is introducing, for my friends in Pittsburgh, extending your licensed premise to a non-contiguous area to give you a little bit more flexibility when we want to do outdoor dining again. And then a few other, I don't want to say tchotchkes, no fees for putting your license in safekeeping, eliminating the off-premise catering permit fees of each year, and then, God forbid, if you do go out of business, giving you the ability to sell your product to another licensee. So we're still working on language as it pertains to making mixed drinks to go permanent. I know that's something that you all want to see be made permanent. So we're working through that. I expect it to happen. And we're also working through delivery of wine and mixed drinks to go in addition to beer. So those are kind of the liquor priorities we're working through. There is a desire, which is a nice change within the legislature, to move our priorities. So we are working through all of that. And as I said, as we get through another federal bill, we'll have another opportunity to try and drive some federal dollars to our destination marketing organizations, to our restaurants, to our hotels, to our tourism attractions, our caterers, and try and get them some relief if we don't see that type of targeted relief at the federal level. Local updates, Philadelphia. I actually, I don't know if any of my Philadelphia friends, at least within the administration, are on the call, but I'm starting to feel bad even for you guys now because it's frustrating. Philadelphia, we're still continuing to work through how we can get restaurants open to 50%. In Philadelphia, you are still at 25%. The health department would like to put standards in place that are increases in that would allow better ventilation within restaurants to go to 50%. That comes at a cost of which the city doesn't have a solution on how to reimburse restaurants for needing to make that type of investment. We, quite frankly, don't see a need for restaurants to have to invest more in ventilation when we aren't the cause of the spread of COVID to begin with. And if you also just look at, since our restaurants around the state have reopened to 50% on January 4th, case counts have been going down. So there is not an increase in cases with restaurants at 50%, and that is without mandated ventilation standards. So we're continuing to work with the city to work through that and try and find a solution there that does not put any additional financial costs on restaurants. And we'll continue to provide updates as we work through it. So I don't have a ton of updates other than if I am not made to be an HVAC expert. So if things don't work out for me at the PRLA, you will not see me taking care of your heating or air conditioning units because it's all Greek to me at this point. Allegheny County, just as an FYI, we do expect paid sick leave legislation to be considered there. Nothing for any of you to do right now. It'll take a few months once it passes for regulations to be developed and for it to take effect, but those conversations are still ongoing within Allegheny County. Huge thanks to our friends at Eaton Park, Brooks Broadhurst specifically, who has kind of been representing PRLA in those negotiations and on behalf of the restaurant community and working through how that legislation will work. So nothing to worry about right now, but it is something that we expect to pass in Allegheny County in the near future. And then just as an update, and I don't know if we're going to throw this in in the chat box. In Philadelphia, our friends at Save Philly Restaurants have put together a COVID testing program. They do it 2 days a week, which is amazing. It's free of charge. You just have to make an appointment. To kind of supplement that, PRLA has partnered with the Philadelphia Chamber of Commerce and developing an additional COVID testing opportunity for those restaurants that are in Philadelphia. It's Philadelphia specific, but it provides another avenue if you need kind of a quick test for your employees or for yourself because you've been maybe in contact with COVID or you're doing contact tracing to that end. So we have been able to develop an additional testing options for those who need it. Let's go to the next slide. Vaccine update. Guess what? Vaccines are a hot mess in Pennsylvania. And I think I said this last week. It's just when West Virginia is your shining star in vaccine distribution, you know that there's problems within the state of Pennsylvania. No offense to my friends in West Virginia, but I don't think I've ever seen a comparison to West Virginia in terms of anything. But statewide, and we'll talk about Philadelphia for a hot minute, the vaccines are not moving quickly. If you've been trying to get an appointment, you're probably finding if you're able to get one, it's at the end of the month. They are starting to roll vaccines out to pharmacies. I heard Rite Aid is doing a very good job, at least in terms of having signups. Vaccines are beginning. We still have at the statewide level, restaurants and hotel workers are in 1C. I know we're working to get bumped up to 1B, but even within 1B, they haven't drilled down to kind of the business sectors within 1B. Statewide, it's 65 or up, except for Philadelphia. If you are a smoker, don't tell me about it, but you're also eligible to be vaccinated now. That's kind of the drama at the statewide level right now. So vaccines are slow. And I will say this because you all know I'm full of comments about everything. It does drive you a little crazy when we started this and we were back in May, June, July, and August, and they said that vaccines were going to be what gets us reopened to 100%. And once we get the vaccines, everything's going to be back to normal. And now we have the vaccines and everybody's saying, but you still need to wear your mask, you still need to social distance, and we still can't let you open up. So I'm not sure what the determination is to let us reopen, but for months we were told it was vaccines. And I think we're kind of waiting to see if that's not the case, what will be the case to get us back where we need to be. In Philadelphia, I will not even go down the rabbit hole of Philadelphia. Philadelphia is struggling with their vaccines. They're hoping to open up some mass vaccination sites by the end of this month. They had contracted with a group of children to vaccinate people in Philadelphia. And if you've read the news, you saw how that turned out. So they're working through the backlash that came with all of that, figuring out what's wrong. Restaurant and hotel workers are in 1B in the city of Philadelphia. Our friends at the Greater Philadelphia Hotel Association, Ed Gross, has been working on figuring out how we can get maybe a vaccine site specific to the hospitality industry. PRLA is, of course, offering our assistance if we can through that. And if we get something set up specifically for people in the industry in 1B in Philadelphia, we'll certainly let you know. But right now in Philadelphia, it's 75 or older that are eligible for vaccines. That's kind of as far as they've gone down, kind of the scope of people able to be vaccinated in Philadelphia. So vaccines are moving slowly, and hopefully they will go a little bit more quickly as the Biden administration ramps up distribution. And then the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, when that comes out, I've mentioned this before, and we had the Department of Health on last week. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine is a one-shot vaccine. So that's going to go a really long way in vaccinating people more quickly and not worrying about the issue of if somebody gets their first shot and they don't make it for their second shot. So it is a one-shot vaccine, which will help, it will go a long way. Next steps, PRLA has sent an official request to the administration yesterday to set up a meeting to discuss how we take the next step in terms of getting the industry reopened. We've requested a meeting. We're seeing COVID cases go down. We are hearing from all of you, not especially, but right now I know the biggest issue for my caterers and my hotels are the fact that your brides are wondering if their spring weddings are going to occur, and you don't have an answer and we don't have an answer, and we haven't gotten an answer. So we've requested a meeting to determine if we can take that next step to increasing indoor events to operate safely. We have also made the official request that now with case counts going down, we need to start talking about that 11 p.m. last call, bringing back bar seating and eliminating the need to get chicken fingers with your beer so you don't get COVID. So we have made the official request, and we certainly hope that the administration will sit down with us and talk about how we can take that next step in terms of getting the industry reopened. We know that's what you're asking. We know that's what you're wondering. It's what we're pushing for as well. We've seen what happens when we try to move legislation. So we're really hoping with the new Secretary of Health, with vaccines and case counts diminishing, we can take that next step in terms of getting the industry back to a next step to normal. With that, I think I can stop talking. And I do know, I don't know if we're highlighting this for next week's webinar. We are having an accountant come on that's going to talk about things, everything relating to federal legislation and what's taxable and tax deductible, all of those tax questions that I don't know, because not only am I never going to be an HVAC expert, I'm never going to be an accountant. So we will have an accountant on next Wednesday to work through all of those questions with you. And with that, I will now stop talking and turn it over to Hope.
I would have covered that. You didn't have to keep talking.
Oh, sorry. I was on a roll.
You were on a roll. We wanted to highlight, excuse me, the upcoming events. We are having virtual Zoom meetings and would love to have participation from everyone, across the state. So please check out our calendar of events. You can register for these Zoom meetings. There's one today and some coming up next week. And Ben just actually threw it into the chat feature. So it's a great way to interact with your fellow restaurateur and hospitality industry, and find out what's going on a local level too. Next slide. So as Melissa just highlighted, we will have a tax accountant from Brown, Schultz, Sheridan, and Fritz to talk about tax implications of CARES money, and just talk about what businesses should be considering when they're working on their 2020 taxes. We will also, there are also two more outside of the PRLA coming up. The one on the 4th, which is sometime this Friday, tomorrow. This is a recovery for funding for PA-DMOs. It's going to be focusing on a major study on recovery and future of tourism. It could be a very good webinar to check out just to see where things are headed. And then on the 11th, the NRA will be reviewing the new resources that they have in place to help you with getting your workforce properly vaccinated. There'll be some attorneys on there to talk about the legal and practical issues you should be thinking about when talking about vaccinations with your staff. And as always, the PA Department of Banking and Securities conducts regular free webinars Tuesdays and Wednesdays. We do have the link on our website, so please check that out. They are webinars on saving, investing, and protecting what you have. With the Super Bowl coming up this weekend, please be sure to get yourself updated on Carryout PA. I'm sure people will be ordering for takeout and delivery on Sundays, so make sure you're up there. And with HARP, if you have, we're doing a great job of getting money out, and we probably will open up the application again for a few more applicants. But as always, please advertise this to your customers as a great way to support our industry. Next slide, ServSafe classes are going on and they're filling up. So please be sure that you are getting your staff certified and looking at the different options that are available to you. And our scholarship program is open. We have extended the deadline to April 1st. We will be awarding 12 $2,000 scholarships this year across the state of Pennsylvania. If you know any high school students or non-traditional students who are going back to school, please make sure that they check out our scholarship program. The NRAEF also has a scholarship program going on right now. They are accepting applications until March 15th. So those are the updates on scholarships. And with that, we will go to questions, which I don't think you have left.
Okay. Yes, I will provide a 2-minute refresher on what the current restrictions are. And that's actually a really good question, Zachary, because I have found I have had to relook them up because even I'm starting to second guess myself. And it still is a balance of about 6 different documents to put together all of the different rules and regulations. So I think you're asking about events. for the purposes of probably everybody on this call, if you can do between 0 and 2,000 is your maximum occupancy in an indoor space, you're at 10%. That's what it is right now, which is why we want to have a conversation with the administration of increasing that. So for indoor events, for the purposes of probably everybody on this call, you're at 10% of maximum occupancy. For outdoor occupancy, you can use the entire space. So if you have a tent, you can use the surrounding space around the tent. That's 15%. And you would use 67 people per 1,000 square feet as your calculator for your outdoor occupancy, if you need to figure that out. So that's your capacity for events for the purposes of, like I said, everybody on this call. Cocktail hours are not permitted in the way that you imagine a cocktail hour. You are allowed to go at an event, allowed to go up to the bar and get a drink, but you cannot stand and drink, and you cannot stand and eat. So a cocktail hour, indoors or outdoors, where you would normally be up and mingling, are not permitted. The butts need to be in seats, which is our favorite phrase from back since April. So any consumption of food and beverage has to be in a seat for people. Now they can get up, like I said, and get their food, can get their beverage, but to consume it, they have to be seated. Dance floors. You are encouraged not to have dance floors. You are not required, you are not banished from having dance floors. So you can have dance floors. To that end, it needs to be like a middle school dance. They want you to have people 6 feet apart. So you need to try and make sure that happens. And again, back to the cocktail hour rules, people cannot bring their beverages onto the dance floor. They cannot bring food onto the dance floor. So if there's dancing, 6 feet apart without food or beverages. Those are the rules as they are stated. Enforcement is a whole nother animal. I'm just telling you the rules as they are stated right now. And then if you have any other specific event questions, guys, just throw them in the chat and I will do my best to work through them. Because I like I said, if I'm even starting to forget things, I know it's difficult. Is the $145 million hospitality grant different from Senate Bill 109? No. 145. So what happens was the governor found the 145 and told the legislature, now you need to allocate it. You need to determine where it goes. That's Senate Bill 109. So the 145 million he found is the 145 million for the hospitality grant program in Senate Bill 109. And then there's other things in there that came from the last federal package that are in that bill as well. It's turned out to be like a $900 million package. Lots of links from Steph and Ben today. Is there a push for an increase in the exempt employee salaries at the federal or state level? I'm going to do state, and then I'm going to bump up to federal. There is currently, way back in 2019, PRLA had our fall meeting, and I didn't attend PRLA's fall meeting because we had cut a minimum wage overtime elimination threshold bill of dreams. I'm still very proud of it, and I still hope that it can happen someday. That did not get across the finish line. The Senate passed it with overwhelming support. The House did not. Then COVID happened. So in Pennsylvania, currently, there was an increase in the federal salary threshold to that 35,000. That's where we are right now. Your salary threshold in Pennsylvania is 35 and change. On October, I want to say 3rd, the first Sunday in October of this year, if something does not change, the salary threshold in Pennsylvania will increase to $40,500 a year. That will be in October of 2021. In October of 2022, if nothing changes, Pennsylvania's salary threshold will increase to $45,500 a year. Then every 3rd year after that, it will increase according to inflation. That is where we are right now. That is your future as of right now. Unless a deal is cut and we pull back the reg, but right now that is what we're looking at in terms of salary threshold in Pennsylvania. We are looking through some legal options there, but on the federal level, this is what we're going to see all along at the federal level. We saw, whether you hate the Trump administration, and I'm quoting my friends from AHLA yesterday, whether you hate the Trump administration or love them, they did do good things in terms of kind of executive orders and things for the industry, for the business community. That was kind of the basis of their entire existence, outside of some other things. They did do that increase in the salary threshold. I think we're going to see a lot more pushes for things at the federal level. I would not say that there won't be an increase in the federal salary threshold, but keep in mind when Obama did it, it took years to take effect. And the night before it was supposed to take effect, that 49,000, the court struck it down. So I think there's a threat of it. I think the biggest thing right now is Pennsylvania's, and that's what we really need to be thinking about. But at the federal level, we're going to be seeing a lot of changes. We're going to see a lot of more pro-labor orders that we're going to be engaging in the court systems if we don't think that they're fair or legal. But at the federal level, we're going to be seeing a lot more things. There could be an increase. This is a really long answer at the federal level, but right now we do have an increase at the state level, and that's what everybody should really be thinking about at this moment. Is there any word on when the travel restriction requiring a negative COVID test within 72 hours of entry into PA will be eliminated? No, but I mean, I can tell you it's not. I'll reiterate this. It's not really being enforced right now. And I know that's not a good answer, but the burden right now is on individuals. It's not on you as a hotel or a restaurant or a tourism business to inform your employees or their guests or your guests that they need to have a COVID test. You can do it as a courtesy, but it is not your job to say you can't come back to work unless you have a negative COVID test, or you can't stay at my hotel unless you have a negative COVID test. So it's more of a personal responsibility order than it is an order on business. Now that doesn't make it any better, because if you travel on any highway in Pennsylvania, my phone is blowing up today. If you travel on any highway in Pennsylvania, you will see that there are signs everywhere about it, but there has not been any word. It's one of those items we plan on bringing up with the administration, but I do want to say, it is not your job as the business community to enforce that order from the Department of Health. Any updates on Philly indoor events? I'll say it again. I do not know what bee Dr. Farley has in his bonnet, but he hates indoor events. We're pushing hard on it. I don't know if our discussions in terms of ventilation is going to move the needle there. We cannot get him to budge on indoor events. We are working on trying to figure out parameters. I mean, left, right, and in between. I have not figured out how to crack that nut. But I will say, I mean, we're seeing New York opening up indoor events. We're seeing some of our surrounding states, and as we know, Pennsylvania doesn't like to be the first or last to do anything. So hopefully that will move the needle in terms of our events. But Gretchen, I wish I had a better answer for Philadelphia, and I know Ben is probably equally as frustrated. We have not figured out this secret sauce that's needed to allow us to safely have indoor events, as opposed to people having all of their Super Bowl parties in their homes on Sunday. Allegheny Health Department has added employee temp check policy to their field inspection checklist. Do you know specifically what they're looking for? So there's a few options here. Many of you have already been doing this for a while. Some of you do temp check your employees when they come in. Otherwise, you want to have them fill out a form that says that they're not showing signs of COVID, or at least, I don't know if Allegheny County will accept this, but we do have some businesses that will put something up in the break room for their employees to see, saying if you're showing signs of COVID, you need to go home. So it's more or less the employer informing the employees that they cannot be at work if they are sick. I don't know if Allegheny County is going deeper than that, but if you do not do temperature checks, you do want to try and have some type of checklist when your employees come in where they say, I don't feel sick. I'm not showing signs of COVID. And looking at the most current printer number of 102 of Senate Bill 109 as of 1/26/2021, it appears to have been heavily amended from the original. It is in that version. I know it is. I can probably pull up the page number that it begins, because I have the other number, but it was amended. So basically they had a bill that moved out of committee. And then they amended it in the appropriation committee. So let's see, it is on page 6 of Senate Bill 109, section 134C, Hospitality Industry Recovery Program. So for those of you that are looking at that, that is where you will find it. And that is printers number 102. Okay. For a good free app, okay, there's a good free app for employees to use before they come in for work. Check out Test Alerts at testalerts.com. So that's an option too for employees to use. My phone is, I don't know what is happening today. And I think with that, I will take any other questions, but I might have checked all the boxes today for once. We don't have a ton of questions.
Nope, it's looking good. So with that, we will end the webinar for today. We have recorded it and we'll send this out for everyone. If you have additional questions, you can always email anyone on staff and we will work to answer your questions as quickly as possible. And with that, I say to everyone, have a good rest of the week and stay safe.
I'm gonna go watch the budget address now. Let's keep our fingers crossed.
Thank you all.